Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Now, of course, every day here on LOA Today is your Daily Dose of Happy, but we're going to kind of take that to the next level because the guy who's joining us today, Jody Lynn, he positions himself, and his new book has the same title, as the man who says the life is too short guy. Life is too short to mess around with the negatives, to be depressed, frustrated, angry, petulant. Pick your favorite negative adjective, and no, not allowed. So he's going to tell us the other side of it, how you get there, how you stay there. And Jody Lynn, the first question I have to ask you is, do you think he's got something new we haven't thought of?
I bet he's got a new perspective that lands differently than anyone else has ever said.
Ooh, I love that. What a great answer. I set you up with a tough one. You treat it like a softball. That was great. I love that. That's beautiful. So let's bring him on. His name is Scott White. And,
no pressure, Scott.
No, Scott, no pressure at all. Now, and his book just got released yesterday. So congratulations on that. That's got to feel really good, Scott.
Thank you. I am very excited. It's been a project a long time in the making, and I'm very grateful to have it out effective yesterday.
Woohoo!
What kicked that off? What got the whole project started?
So I've been thinking about writing a book for a long time. I'd say probably the better part of a decade. It was one of those bucket list type things. You know, you always want new challenges, new ideas, new things to challenge yourself. And it was a passing sort of, someday I'm going to write a book. And early in 2021, so called 2 years ago, I started working with a new coach. I like to work with mentors, coaches, people that help me level up my game. And I was working with a new coach, and he did an assessment in our first session. And then the second time we met, he's like, I remember exactly. It's like, dude, you're like Mr. Life is Too Short guy. Everything is get it done today, rah, rah, live in the moment, enjoy life. Like it's fascinating. And it sort of hit me as, yeah, I know, but I never thought of Mr. Life is Too Short guy. And so that night, again, this was 2 years ago, I mentioned it to my wife, like, I met this guy, Kevin, today. And actually it was the second time I met him, but I talked to Kevin today, and he called me Mr. Life is Too Short guy. And she's like, yeah, I can see that. That doesn't surprise me. Now, I've been with my wife since high school. I'm very grateful and fortunate. So if anyone knows me, so she says to me, she's like, maybe that's the book you wanted to write. I looked at her like, the heck is that book going to be about? Like, this Life is Too Short guy. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. But, in her own little special way, and I'm very grateful for her, she planted the seed that night. And then a couple of days later, she watered the seed a little bit. And then a couple of days later, she fertilized the seed a little bit. And she allowed it to percolate without pushing me. And I probably spent about 5 or 6 weeks writing a couple of notes. I love to run. I'm a big runner. I go out, I run, I come back, and I bang out some notes on my computer. I create a little outline. I'm like, if I were to write this thing, and I have no idea how, this is what it would look like. And it stopped. This was called in March 2021. I'm like, all right, well, at least I started to put some pen to paper, but I don't know where I'm going with this. And early in 2022, we were in that phase, through most of COVID, but then lingering into 2022, where we did a lot of webinars, right? You see interesting speakers, and I love to do that. I love to learn. I think that's part of the formula for happiness, is challenging yourself and learning something new every day. And I saw a speaker by the name of Eric Custer, and Eric is a professor at Georgetown. He's an entrepreneur, and he created a course years ago at Georgetown in the MBA program where he taught people how to write books, how to position books, how to price books, how to build a business around writing a book. And then he saw the opportunity to open up a course to non-Georgetown students, i.e. me, to how you write a book. So I did a call with Eric early in 2022, a year ago, and he's like, so, we do an introduction. It's like, what are you thinking? And I didn't know what I was thinking. I for my day job, for my full-time job and my commitment, I am the CEO and chairman of a public real estate company. That's what I do. That's what pays the bills. And I said to him, I'm like, look, I'm really enamored and focused on culture and building teams, and I've written a little on it, so maybe I'll do that. And then, Eric, I got this idea. I don't really know. It's life is too short, guy. Live in the moment. Make the most of every minute. You only have so many minutes. Be positive. Be grateful. Be happy. And he's like, that's your book. And I'm like, Eric, I guess, but what's the book? He's like, don't worry. I could see you talked about HR and culture and blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, and passion and energy and excitement and life is too short. We'll figure it out. And Eric and his team guided me through the process all last year with a course and then editors and a publisher, and effective yesterday, January 10th, I am a published author, and it's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It'll be in stores soon. And that's the journey. It's been a wonderful journey.
And that's exciting too. I mean, we've both been there. We know what it's like, especially with that first book. And when it first comes out and it's first, like, there's all these different thoughts going through your mind, like, oh my God, is anybody going to buy this thing?
Yes.
Like,
yes. Well, even before that, forget about buying it. I was like, is anyone going to care what I have to say?
yeah.
Like, you know, that proverbial imposter syndrome that, all right, well, other people know how to do this, but I don't know how to do that. And I dealt with that early on. I'd say February, March. I was like, you're not qualified to write a book. I mean, I love writing. The writing is the easiest part. The harder part was figuring out how to make the concepts actionable, I really, really, really want people to take the book, hear the message, and live a better life. This isn't about selling books. It's about getting people to embrace the message of happiness, much like what you're trying to do with the podcast. Make every day in fact, I didn't go on to tell you sort of one of the taglines for it is strategies to make every day the best day ever. That's my goal. In fact, here's the book, and you can see the subtitle right there, Strategies to Make Every Day the Best Day Ever. I think we each have the ability to make every day the best day ever. And some people have challenged me saying, come on, Scott, I mean, you got married, you had kids, like today's the best day ever. And I'm like, why not? Why not? It's all about perspective and attitude. I wake up with the opportunity to make today the best day ever. Can every day possibly be the best day ever? No. By definition, every day won't necessarily be better than the prior day, but I got a shot at it every day, and I want people to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd even argue that every day is the best day ever. I like your original premise. And the reason I would say that is I can't do anything about the past days.
Right.
Like them or not, I can't do a dang thing about them. They're gone. The only thing I can do anything about is today. So what's better than the day you can actually do something about?
I think that's fair. I think that's fair.
And I think memories are kind of fickle. So the bad stuff seems to get worse as time goes on if you allow it with that perspective, but also the good, like something that was, you know, so sweet and amazing. Like we, over dramatize it, like make it dreamier and sexier than ever before, but really was it in that moment? What did it feel like in that moment? And can you bring that to today? Absolutely.
I agree with that 100%.
I would even take that a step further. When you go back to what the original moment actually was, we've turned it into, over time, we've turned it into this wonderful moment. Probably at the time, there was some moment of terror involved in it. Yeah. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this really positive association with it. Now that's part of the vulnerability of the emotion of the moment that you're in at that particular time. Like, oh my God, I'm living it right now.
Absolutely. And maybe you even watched it go by and didn't realize how monumental it was until it was over.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the moment I fell in love.
Could be. Well, that's what I'm trying to encourage people to do is recognize those moments real time. Recognize your life as it's flying by because it's not slowing down.
Yeah. It just gets faster and faster.
That's part of the concept. Again, going back to the book, if you look at the visual on the book, it's an hourglass. And one of the concepts I talk about, there's sort of 10 core principles. One of them is minutes matter. And I talk about the fact that you only have so many minutes in your life and we take them for granted. And I do this little math equation that whenever I walk people through it, they always say, I could see the light bulb go off when I do this. And I say, look, when you're born, you can put in any assumption you want, but just to humor me, and I talk about this in the book, you're going to live about 80 years, plus or minus. Life expectancy is about 80 years. 80 years translates into about 42 million minutes, plus or minus. Now, just drawing a line in the middle there, and anyone listening to this or watching this can adjust their own math. But for me, just keeping the math simple, if you're halfway through life, plus or minus 40, you got 21 million minutes left. By definition, you're probably going to sleep about a third of those now. You're down to 14 million minutes. Likely, sort of as you're in the final years of life, you're not going to have the same physical and maybe mental abilities. It's just the reality. I want every day to be the best day ever. But you got to realize that as you get older, things get a little bit more challenging later in life. So you make an estimate, you lose 1 million or 2 million minutes. Well, by the way, you're 40 years old and you got 12 million minutes left. What are you doing with them? And I don't make judgments at all about what you're doing with them. Happiness is defined by each person individually. And if for you, sitting around and watching TV all day is how you're living your best life and your most fulfilling life, awesome. What I think, and my message to people is, be thoughtful about that. Be proactive. Don't sort of reflect back and be like, I don't know what I did today. I don't know what I did this week. I don't know what I did this month. I tell people to picture a barrel, right? You could picture whatever barrel you want. For me, it's a wine barrel, but you picture whatever barrel you want. And in that barrel are the minutes left in your life. And you could use whatever image you want. For me, it's gold coins. And whenever you're doing something, whatever it is, for me, I'm talking to you right now. I'm reaching into the barrel and I'm grabbing minutes out and they're coming out of the barrel. What I caution people about is the leaks in the barrel. What happens when all of a sudden you look in and you're like, whoa, where did all those minutes go? What am I doing with my life? Those are the types of messages that I want people to reflect on and be like, you know what? I'm going to be thoughtful, proactive, and use my minutes for things that make me happy, for things that make me fulfilled. What those things are is up to you.
Wow.
That's a great point.
That is a powerful image. You know, the barrel with the gold coins and like imagining yourself taking a gold coin out or multiple gold coins out for these moments that you're in. And that's, wow.
And you can't put more coins in, unfortunately. You don't have the ability to put more coins in. And by the way, you don't know how many coins are in there. So maximize them. That's why for me, they're gold coins, because minutes are precious and not enough people focus on that. Every day I think about, what am I doing with my minutes? If there are things I'm doing with my minutes that aren't adding value to my life, that aren't making me happy, that aren't making me feel fulfilled, then stop doing those things and find things that way. Again, the gold coin image. I'm like, wow, that's a good use of that coin. Look at that coin. That's a good one. For me, spending this time with you, I'm grateful. I'm so happy you invited me to be on this show. It's a wonderful opportunity. This is a good use of those gold coins.
It's funny, as you were describing that metaphor, I had Frank Sinatra singing My Way in the back of my head, singing the verse where he says, regrets I've had a few, but in the end, the final curtain. And I realized there needed to be another line that wasn't there that says, joys, I've had a bunch of those too, and they're the ones that I focus on. And that's what you're talking about.
That's exactly right. That is well put. Well put. I may steal that concept for the future.
Well, I always like flipping things around. We human beings have a tendency to express things in the negative. Even when we're talking positive, we still express them in the negative, which is kind of odd, but that's what we do.
Yep.
You know, so I try to train myself. Whenever I hear an expression in the negative, I say to myself, okay, so what's the flip side of that? How do I turn that into a more positive, affirmative statement? And every time I do that, I'm glad that I did, because, it felt better that way. It felt more positive, felt happier.
No
and as you point out, everybody has a different idea of what happy is. You know, we tend to think happy is like, well, happy is high vibration, right? Happy is, you know, that's that upper level up here that we're all aiming at, but it's going to be different for every person. That's
right.
Really an odd thing.
That's exactly right. And I don't think anyone should judge what defines happiness, what defines success. Each person has to do that for themselves. And I'm careful not to make those judgments. I just encourage people to think about. So I think we could each define for ourselves what makes us happy and what doesn't, when we're feeling happy and when we're not, when we're feeling fulfilled. And one of the challenges, the metaphor, the concept, life is too short, is don't waste more minutes doing things you don't like, and start using minutes to do new things, to do things that maybe you've been afraid to do. Now's the time. Today is the day, literally on whatever, January 11th, today's the day to say, you know what? I'm going to use my minutes to, you fill in the blank.
I was also thinking, as you were describing this concept, I was thinking about what I was working on earlier today. And it was a task I really didn't want to do. It wasn't fun. It was pretty challenging to have to even face doing it. I finally sat down and I started to do it. But as I was listening to you, I thought to myself, what if I had found a way to flip that around? What if I had found a way to flip it around and find the joy in that thing that I was already thinking about in terms of, oh God, I really have to do this thing?
Look, no doubt. So I've talked a lot about kind of minutes matter and the concept of time is waning, but the foundational principle of the book, the starting again, I said there are 10 principles. The first principle, the most important one, is what you just talked about, and that's attitude is everything, the power of positivity. I challenge people to view the world through a different lens, to have the ability to find the good in almost anything. And I say almost, and I almost want to remove the word almost, because I think there are opportunities to find some positive in any set of facts. And you know, I talk a lot about that in the book, both personal stories and stories of other people that have had major setbacks, major epiphanies, major aha moments, and what happiness and gratefulness and lessons learned they took away and I took away from those situations. Because even in the worst of times, there are opportunities to one, learn, and two, to find positivity. As you just said, well, what if I looked at what I was doing instead of this is a grind, this is awful, I hate doing this, as wow, I'm learning, I'm practicing, I'm improving, I'm whatever words you come up with as a perspective for viewing the world.
And what I was actually working on, Jody Lynn is aware of this, listeners are aware of this, but you aren't, because you just met me today. But I'm in the midst of a divorce. And what I was working on today was divorce paperwork. And let me tell you, that is not fun. That's probably on par, maybe even below going to the dentist. I mean, it's one of those things you really don't want to have to do. But as I got myself to start doing it, one of the ways I got myself to start doing it was the realization that, well, once I get past the divorce, everything's going to be better. So this is actually helping me get to a better moment.
Of course. Yeah. It's the next chapter. It's a learning experience. It's wow, I'm grateful I have the intellectual abilities to do this paperwork, because how many people might not be able to do it? How many people might not be able to get out of bad relationships because of whatever their circumstances are? No judgment on whatever your relationship is, but you are in a position to turn the page and move on to the next chapter. Wow, that's awesome. Like, that's amazing. You had the opportunity to do the paperwork today, because now you're on to the next thing. Great. This is a great day.
And to follow up on the point you just made, I am fortunate because my soon-to-be ex and me are in agreement about this. We're not fighting. There's no lawyers involved. There's no pending court date where we're going to be battling it out over X, Y, or Z. None of that. We're in agreement about all of it. It's about as easy as a divorce can be. So
great set of facts.
I still don't like having to go through the divorce, but boy, it's pretty good compared to what it could be.
That's it. That viewing the world through that lens.
Yeah. It's amazing how we have that opportunity every day, not just every day, every moment in every day, to deal with anything we're dealing with from the idea of, how am I going to view this? Like you said, Jody, at the beginning, Jody Lynn's point that you're going to be bringing us a new perspective we hadn't heard before. I think that's a valid point, but because everybody brings a different perspective.
By definition.
And the degree to which we can choose this, by the way, this is something that took me a long time to learn. We could actually do this. Choose to change our own perspective. That's where we call them superpowers these days. That's where our superpowers come from our abilities to change our own perspectives about whatever's going on, no matter what it is.
It goes back to the point I said about attitude is everything. And one of the actual concepts and principles I say is choose your attitude and own it. That's a chapter. Choose your attitude and own it. And the research demonstrates, and a lot of people are shocked by this. I actually suspect, given this podcast and given your perspectives, you're not shocked by this, but maybe some of your listeners are. I often ask people, how much of your happiness do you think is predicated on your circumstances? Your new car, your new house, your raise, your title, or go the other way. Let's unfortunately, your divorce, death of a loved one, major illness. What percent of that pie is the pie of happiness predicted by your circumstances?
Ooh, I would say, I'm going to answer this one, 0 or 1%.
It's a little more, but it's shocking you went that low. I mean, most people think that's what drives their happiness, right? The new car, today's the best day of my life. Death of a loved one, today's the worst day of my life. I got it. But over the long time, your circumstances account for 10% of your happiness. 10%. Very few people will guess that low, unless I sort of tee them up depends on how you ask the question. Now, in fairness, 50% based on empirical research, 50% is predicted by your genetic makeup, just like your hair color, your eye color, your body mass. 50%
Really?
of your happiness is predicted in part by your genetic makeup. But that leaves 40%. That's a big piece of the pie. If I told you and everything you're involved in, you can control 40% of the outcomes, it's pretty impressive because there aren't a lot of things that you can control 40% of all the outcomes. You control 40% of your happiness based on your view of the world. Now, if you layer on the 10% of your circumstances, which, by the way, to a certain degree, you control some of your circumstances, not all, I got that. About half your happiness is all about your perspective, about the lens through which you view the world.
Yeah. So if you change the perspective that you have on the circumstances that you're going through or that are in front of you, then you have an extra 10% towards that, positivity, your attitude, whatever, right?
You control a lot of it. And that's what I want people to take away by listening to this, by reading the book, by understanding, so much is how you view the world. So much is your perspective. The conversation we just had about the divorce could be a horrible day doing divorce papers, could be a great day in terms of moving on to the next chapter, the next adventure, the next opportunity, the ability to change my circumstances are in my control, the ability to have the intellectual horsepower to do the paperwork you're talking about, the ability to exit in a non-confrontational, wow, this is amazing. I've had such a great day. Look at that. Right? So that's what I want people to start thinking about. And there's just so much opportunity in the world we live in where, you read the headlines and look, I understand the news media by definition. If it bleeds, it leads, right? I mean, that's part of what creates that aura. But so many people you meet on a daily basis, the perspective is always, the topics are about the bad weather. The topics are about the war. The topics are about COVID. The topics are about whatever you want, whatever that topic is. Again, let's pick one of them. Let's pick COVID, for example, right? So instead of talking about, and by the way, a lot of bad things happened. I am not going to gloss over the fact that millions of people died. Families were uprooted. A lot of bad things happened. However, let's talk about we all sort of had a chance to pause, to hop off that treadmill of life and reflect on what's important for us. I had a chance to write a book. Woohoo! We all had a chance to, or many of us, not everyone, many of us had a chance to spend more time with family. Many of us had a chance to watch the webinars and learn new things, to read new books, to engage in deepening relationships. Man, that COVID thing was pretty damn awesome. Again, with all due respect, I don't want to gloss over the fact that people lost their lives and families were disrupted. People lost their jobs. A lot of bad things happened from it. But let's not only focus on the negative because a lot of great things happened.
Totally agree. In fact, I'd even add in something that I think was true for all of us going through the pandemic, which was we were all presented with new opportunities for appreciating stuff that we hadn't appreciated before. Didn't all take those opportunities, but we were all presented with those opportunities.
Agreed.
And that's another example for me about how we have the option at any moment in any given day, any given time to decide how are we going to respond to what it is that's going on in our lives, no matter what it is, no matter how challenging it is. I mean, like you were mentioning, talking about the divorce paperwork that I was dealing with. But actually I'd been dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. Like literally the divorce set off a whole cascade of things. And again, listeners know about this, but, it directly affected my income because my income was tied into a business that my soon-to-be ex owned and ran. It tied into my vehicle because I was getting the old vehicle from the business, which was on its last legs. It tied into my living situation, the apartment that we were in. The lease was coming due, and a new company had taken over, and God only knew what was going to happen to the rent. I mean, there was like this whole series of things, all major events going on at the same time. And all I could think was, my God, this is just like 2014. Because in 2014, she and I had moved back to Connecticut from Virginia. We live in Connecticut. We had lived in Virginia for about 10, 11 years. We were moving back, and we were doing it at a time when we were financially devastated and literally had nothing and trying to figure out how to even make the move. I mean, it was that desperate. And literally in about a 2-week period, 5 or 6 different major events just kind of fell into place. And it was a source of amazement. And as I was going through this, I thought to myself, my God, this feels exactly like 2014. It feels like the issues are different,
Right.
but it feels exactly the same. All this chaos going on, all this crisis going on around me. And I see all these plates up in the air. And this time around, I'm saying, I have no idea where these plates are going to go. I have no control over these plates. They could just smash to the ground. I don't know what's going to happen. But I do know this. I went through this in 2014, and I know in 2014 I was taught you just trust and things are going to work out. And you know what? Those plates have settled down. They didn't come crashing down to earth. They actually create a nice, neat pile next to the sink to be cleaned. I mean, it was just that's the way it's playing out. Now, why did it play out that way? Well, because I decided it was going to play out that way. Because I set the mindset. And so once again, we come back to that mindset piece, which I think is really at the root of what you're talking about. What's your mindset going to be when it comes to your own happiness?
That's right. That's a big part of the message. Not the whole message, but that's a big part of the message. The foundational principle.
Yeah. Because without that foundation, you can't build.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's why it's the first two chapters. First two chapters are attitude is everything, the power of positivity, and then choose your attitude and own it. Principles 1 and principles 2.
So Jody Lynn. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like how you phrase that. Choose your attitude and own it, because it's empowering. Whatever the attitude is that you want to choose right now, own it. You know, if you want to have a shitty attitude, own it too. If that's what you want to choose right now, own it wholly and completely, and make it your own, whatever it is. And I think I would add in there too, that you can choose again. If that one didn't work so well, there's an unlimited amount of choices.
That's right.
Inside of the moments that we have left.
That's absolutely right. Every day is a new opportunity. You know, one of the concepts I actually wrote an article about is that we spend so much time focused on things like New Year's, right? New Year's is a new year, or a new academic or school year. But every day is a new opportunity. I mean, you can really say every minute's a new opportunity, but every day you wake up and you choose your attitude. You have an opportunity to change your life. You don't have to wait for some artificial, all right, January 1st is going to be a whole new year, a whole new world, a whole new me. But what about January 11th? What about January 28th? What about March 4th? Any day can be that day where you're going to choose your attitude and own it. And you're going to explore new opportunities, and you're going to do what makes you happy. Don't create an artificial date. Make it today, because you don't know, again, going back to the barrel, you look in the barrel, you're like, looks like there's a lot of minutes left, but you don't know how many minutes are left. So make today that best day.
Mm-hmm.
Jody Lynn, you're a coach. You help people particularly with their financial situations. And I'm wondering, I know we've talked about it in the past. I know we've certainly danced around this quite a bit in the past, but specifically what Scott's talking about literally choosing to be happy at any given time. How much does that play into your coaching practice?
100%. Because I think that people are so fixated on it's my circumstances, so the amount of money and the things that I have that will make me happy. And then we go on this, down this rabbit trail, chasing our tails to get more and more and more things. And then, you don't feel satiated or whatever, or you just want more. That's not good enough. And I want more, and I want more, and I want more. And that's a huge part of my teaching, is that you can look at somebody who has a lot of money, and happiness is not absolute, meaning not every single person in the world who has money is gloriously happy and joyous and blissful. That's not absolute. So it's not the money giving the happiness, it's you choosing the happiness. And when you're in that frequency of love and joy and bliss, money is attracted to that. So you're actually going to get more opportunities to have more money flow to you. So it's the opposite of what people are thinking. So it's huge.
I like, in light of what you just said, or consistent with what you just said, I tell people to think about the formula that we all sort of follow. And other people have said this. This is not my unique idea. I'm just using it of we all work really hard to find success, which leads to happiness. Wrong. It's the wrong formula, because exactly what you just said, we get on that hedonic treadmill and we work hard to find success, to work harder, to find more success, to work harder, to find more success. And the goalposts just keep moving further out. And you're like, what the hell am I going to be happy? What if you started with, change the formula, right? A plus B equals C, change the formula to, I'm going to be happy today, which will lead me to find things I'm passionate about, and I will work hard, which will translate into success. However you define success. It doesn't have to be anything to do with money. Success can very well be a philanthropic, I'm going to cure or help reduce homelessness in the world. Okay, let's stay away from money. Well, instead of working really hard to put people in homes to be happy, what if I'm happy to have the skills, the wherewithal, the intellectual ability, the fill in the blank, whatever it is, to figure out how to alleviate the homeless issue, to put people in homes, permanent homes. I just picked that as a random concept. That will make me happier. It's about changing the formula instead of chasing that happiness that never happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And these objects, it's so funny because I did exactly that, waiting until I could buy this new car or I'd get to this new promotion level or whatever, and then I will be happy. And it was so frustrating because I wasn't.
Right.
Because I wasn't happy. And further to that, I didn't know that I was unhappy. And that sounds really stupid, but I didn't know. And I think there's a lot of people who are just stuck on that treadmill chasing things that they've never stopped to ask themselves, does this actually make me happy? Right. And multiple times in my life that's happened where I've had a hard stop and had to evaluate my life. But 2020 was one of those examples. Like, am I happy going to the office every day?
Right.
Does that make me happy? No, I actually don't like it because I really like having a full kitchen right beside me because I like to eat. So I can make whatever I want. And I often would forget my lunch when I'd go to the office, and eating makes me happy. So being at home and working from home creates more happiness in my life because I have a kitchen here.
I love it.
It's so simple, but something I never allowed myself to choose before. I have a brokerage business and then I have the coaching business, but the brokerage business, it was all be the first in the office, the last to leave. You got to be there all the time, making calls, doing things, so I would rush to get to the office in the morning and I would be there 12, 14 hours a day. And it was the first time, not the first time, but really the first time that I reflected as deeply as I did in that moment. Like, does this really make me happy to do it like this? And what could I choose instead?
Well said. Well said.
Thank you. It's all about the choices.
It's all about the choices.
It's about the choices.
Be proactive and make those choices deliberately. Don't let life pass you by.
Yeah, and don't let somebody else choose for you. Just because this is always something that I'm, kind of harping on, is we just get stuck in the box that everybody else has created. It's got to look like this. Who says? Well, they say. Who's they? Does it really matter? And if it's against your happiness, like doing it this way, it's going to create more frustration. It's going to lower your vibration, which is going to make everything harder anyway. So why don't you just do it the way that makes you the happiest?
I think they have a lot to answer for.
Yeah. I agree.
They always get it wrong. I don't understand why we keep referring to them with reverence when they are usually messed up.
Yeah.
But that's my way of finding the happiness. Like, I just laugh at that craziness.
You just gotta laugh. Look, and laughing is another concept I actually talk about in the book. So one of the things I talk about, so one of the principles is funny things are everywhere. And I quote the great Dr. Seuss, from there to here, from here to there, funny things are everywhere. And I encourage people to find humor in yourself, find humor in the world around you. We take things too seriously. You could find humor anywhere. Notice I didn't put a qualifier in. I didn't say almost. You can find humor anywhere. And I tell this story in the book that, unfortunately my father passed away about 15 years ago, and I was I was fairly young. He was fairly young. I was at the funeral, and I'm standing over the open casket. It's sort of that final moment of viewing before the family comes in. I'm there with my brother and immediate family, and you can't think of probably a worse time in one's life, and humor would probably be the last thing you would possibly think about. And I'm standing there and I'm wearing my jacket and my phone rings. So I didn't mute my phone. I'm standing over my dad. I literally reach into my pocket. Like, hey, Dad, what are you up to? The people around me just burst out laughing. Again, why be so serious? Is it so awful I mean, he wasn't fussed at all. I assure you, it didn't bother him at all. No disrespect. My brother was laughing. His wife was laughing. I mean, everyone sort of thought for a minute, like, wait, is it cool to laugh? Forget about the social norms. Enjoy life. You could find humor anywhere. It helps you, laughing creates chemicals in the brain that make you happier, makes those around you happier. Laugh with others, laugh at others, laugh at yourself. Don't take the world around you too seriously.
Yeah. I love that. I think I've done that before. Not the phone call, but I vividly remember or recall a memory of standing in front of an open casket with my brother. And my brother was a rodeo clown for a long time, so he's a funny guy. And I remember it was just the two of us, and I think it was a friend of ours that had passed away. And my brother said something, and we both just started laughing in this room. Like, right. It was crazy, but it was a great memory.
And it feels inappropriate. It feels unacceptable. And look, we're focusing on death, but you can think about important business meetings. You could think about visiting someone in a hospital. You could think about an argument, whatever it is. There's always an opportunity to find humor. I think humor is a leveling perspective. It kind of brings not everyone finds the same things funny, right. But everyone can appreciate some level of, like, he's not taking himself so seriously. Here's like the big, important, whatever person in the room, whomever that is. It's usually not me. It's usually someone else. But whomever that important person is, if they can show a level of vulnerability in part tied to humor, whether laughing at themselves, making a general sort of funny statement, it changes the dynamic in a room, in a situation, such that everyone can relate. Look, we're all humans, right? We're all sort of people. We can all relate to one another. Again, not everyone finds humor or funny the same way. Not everyone defines funny the same way. But I think generally speaking, certainly within a common culture, we understand what things are meant to be funny, try to be funny. Now, look, I've had plenty of busts in my effort to be funny, but my point is you can find humor anywhere. Use humor as one of those principles to find happiness and fulfillment.
You're also reminding me of something, too, because as you're making this point about humor, and we're doing it in the context of deaths and funerals, it reminds me of a funeral that I attended. It was my soon-to-be ex's sister's husband who had passed, and I'm sitting with my sister-in-law, and it was a full Catholic, wake and funeral and so forth. So it was pretty rough, and she was worn out at that point, and you could just tell the look on her face. I mean, she was still processing the death. She was processing all this craziness that had been going on. And I wanted to take her out of that. And so I just went with something that I knew from prior experience worked. I was pretty sure it would work with her. I didn't really know her husband well. Literally the only time I'd ever met him was at my wedding. I never, for whatever reason, no, that's not true. There was one other occasion when we had visited them and he was there. But most of the time, for whatever reason, he had been traveling, whatever, I just had no interaction with him. So I took advantage of it. And I asked her, I never really knew Joe very well other than, the occasions I laid out for you. Tell me about what it was that you really loved about him. Because I never really got to see that side. And just by getting her to focus on the love, just changed everything. Her demeanor changed. Her face changed. She started telling me these funny stories about how he used to make her laugh. She told me the story of how they met, and she just laid out the whole narrative of their lives. And in the process of doing that, everything felt better to her. So my point is, not only does the laughter work, but focusing on love works too.
Mm-hmm.
Another concept. Didn't incorporate that one in the book, but another great concept.
And it works beautifully. It's one that we tend to forget about in difficult circumstances.
Agreed. Agreed. But look, it ties to perspective, right? It's all about the lens. I talk a lot about the lens. One of the starting concepts in the book that I talk about that's fairly simple, but it makes people think. I ask people all the time, and I'll ask you too, what was your first thought when you woke up this morning? Do you know what your first thought was?
My first thought this morning. Yeah, I know what my first thought was. My cat was licking me. I said, Joy, what are you doing? That was my first thought.
Okay, so you reacted to the circumstances around you, and it seems like Jody Lynn doesn't remember because most people don't. And what I encourage people to do, similar to the metaphor of the coins and thinking about what you're doing with them, be thoughtful in your first thought of the day. I think it sets the script for the day. Bear in mind, there are things out of your control and the world's going to change on you no matter how you wake up and what you start the day with. It's a roller coaster. They're going to be highs and lows, but why wouldn't you want to set yourself up for the greatest success? You know, I talk about, a Henry Ford quote in the book. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. I may have butchered the quote a little bit, but that's the concept. If you wake up and I'm very thoughtful and proactive the minute I open my eyes in terms of today, it's January. I'm a big runner, so I go out early every morning and run, and it's cold. I'm in New Jersey, and I could have woken up. It's cold. It's dark. I don't know if I want to get up and run. I have 37 calls today. I don't know how I'm going to make it through the day. I didn't. I woke up and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. I'm going to get out and I'm going to run. It's a beautiful day. It's not snowing or anything out. My wife is next to me, the love of my life that I've been with now for 30 some odd years since high school. I have this opportunity to talk to Walt and Jody Lynn today. I have an opportunity to do a bunch of other things today. By the way, I'm 15 seconds in the day. 15 seconds in the day, and already I'm like, it's going to be a great day. Again, things happen, life changes, but had I woken up with that either the melees, the grogginess of, what day is it? I don't even know where I am or who I am, or oh God, I got to talk to so-and-so and I got to do this, I got to do that. I'm setting myself up for, I think, greater failure, greater negativity, less happiness. By being proactive and thinking that first thought, boom, today's my day. It's going to be amazing. I think I have greater success throughout the day.
Yeah. Well, your energy is flowing to where you're thinking, where your attention is going. So you focus on all the things you're excited about and had that perspective that these were exciting things instead of overwhelming or uncomfortable or whatever they could be. Oh, it's too cold, all of that. So it makes total sense that the rest of your day would follow the same pattern either way.
My goal. It's one of my tips in the book. Be thoughtful, proactive, and deliberate in your first thought of the day. You have one chance to start the day right every day. Do it right.
I'm trying to remember who it was. It's an author coach. I think it was one of the presenters in the movie The Secret, but I don't remember which one it was. And what he said was that every morning when he gets up, as he puts his feet on the ground, with the first foot he says thank, and with the second foot he says you. And that's his pattern every day. Thank you, every single morning.
Wow, that's beautiful.
I think that's wonderful. It's thoughtful, it's proactive, it's deliberate, it's setting the right tone for the day. Whatever it is, whatever your sort of process is, but I challenge the listeners to be thoughtful, be deliberate, be proactive, be positive.
Something that I think I want to incorporate, throughout my day, I have like on my big computer screen at the bottom, I have sticky notes, and the sticky notes are like on the bottom, like stuck there. And I have two. One says, I'm the luckiest woman in the world. Everything is always working out for me, as a reminder that I am. And number two, the second sticky note that's on my computer, actually there's three, but, the second one is a list of all of the desired emotions that I desire to feel, as a reminder that that's the most important thing. And then the third one is, a love note from my husband. But I think, taking one of those sticky notes and putting it, beside my bed is that reminder of, whatever, being thankful, grateful, whatever the note is, just as that reminder as I wake up and put my feet on the floor. That'd be amazing.
Look, it's a great concept. It's amazing. It's one of the other concepts I talk about in the book. It's almost like you read the book already, which I know is impossible since I released it yesterday. But, I've already covered a couple of the chapters. One of the other chapters is called Little Things Make a Big Difference. So the concept, the idea is you don't have to change your whole life, your whole perspective. We're not going to move mountains. We're going to create small opportunities to live a better life. And within little things make a big difference. There are a couple of concepts, but I'm going to go right to the one that you just talked about, is we need little symbols and reminders, whatever that is. And I talk about someone in the book who actually tattooed something. He lost his wife, and he tattooed a quote of hers that when he looks down at his computer on his wrist, it reminds him. Now, look, I'm not suggesting everyone needs a tattoo, but that yellow sticky note, for me, it's a poem. I have a little poem. I'm looking at it right now, right next to my desk. It's called If I Knew. And it reminds me sort of, if I knew today could be the last day, blah, 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 you go on through it. And I try to read it every day. Maybe it's a picture. Maybe it's a t-shirt or a mug, right? People are like, cheesy mug saying smile or be happy. No, actually it works because sometimes we need those reminders. We get caught up in the daily grind. We get caught up in the chaos. We get caught up in the boom, boom, boom. And all of a sudden you look down and to your point, Jody Lynn, you see a couple of words of reminders and you're like, yeah, that works. And by the way, for that one little smile that you just made, bam, already it's a better day. And that's part of my message and my goal and my mission is to make the world happier one smile at a time. Look, we're not going to walk around smiling 24/7, but if you get in another 2 or 3 smiles an hour, bam, it's a better day.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I don't remember exactly what the numbers are, but somebody actually calculated that every time you smile, you send X amount of dopamine into your nervous system.
Yep.
And
Wow.
it's a direct thing every single time. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And it's in the same chapter. Little things make a big difference. The 5 little things that I talk about. 1 is smiling. 2 is using symbols to remind ourselves of happiness, gratefulness, positivity. 3, similar to smiling, it's been empirically demonstrated that singing, whistling makes us happy, creates chemicals in the brain. So you'll find me at random times whistling, singing. By the way, horrible singer. Even worse, I don't know any of the words. My family says, why don't you make up all the words? But it doesn't matter. Because it energizes me and makes me feel better. I think it makes people around me feel better. I don't know. You'll have to ask them. But singing and whistling is 3. 4th is random acts of kindness. Giving and receiving. When was the last time you did something for somebody you don't know that doesn't really know you? You surprise them. You shock them. I talk in the book about 2 great examples. One where I was a giver. I took my daughter and her friends. She was 16, I guess, last year or the year before, out for dinner. It was her 16th birthday, and we went to a restaurant by the Jersey Shore, and looking across the room, and I see a couple probably in their early 20s sitting there talking, and I look at my wife, and I look at my wife, and she's like, who are you staring at? I'm like, a couple kind of just reminds me of us a little bit. Again, my wife and I have been together since we're teenagers, and I call over the waitress. I'm like, when they're done, give me their check. And they gave me the check. I put the credit card down, paid. She went and told them, which I actually didn't even want her to do. I wanted it to just be left anonymous. They came over and could have been, you would think I bought them a house. They were so grateful, so happy, made me feel so good. My daughter and her friends are there. Everyone sees it. I bet it costs $75. We're not talking about sort of moving or changing the world with the investment I made. Random acts of kindness. I talk about another story in the book that
Wait, I want to stop you for 1 second.
Yeah.
You said it's not changing the world, but I disagree because I think that it is, because you made a lasting impact on that couple that they will never forget for that $75. The amount of love that you poured into them and the ripple effect of that is worth an exponential amount more than $75.
And the story. I mean, how many times are they going to tell that story?
Yeah.
There's your ripple effect.
I have no idea who they are. I've never seen them again. I couldn't even tell you what they look like. If they were on this call right now, I'd have no idea. And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it. I have another example I talk about in the book where I was a recipient. It's just an amazing story so I mentioned a few times now I'm a runner. I love to run. It's my hobby. It's my passion. And about 15, 16 years ago, I signed up for my first marathon. I'm going to run the New York City Marathon. And when you sign up for a big marathon, you're supposed to give them a projected time. I have no idea. I'm like, I don't know. I've never run a marathon. We'll go 4 hours. I have no idea. So I submit the thing in 4 hours, and then I start training. I get serious. I run a half marathon in under an hour and a half. I run a half marathon under 90 minutes. I'm like, look at me. I'm like a world-class runner. So I show up to pick up my packet at Jacob Javits Center where you get your marathon materials, and I go and I tell this woman, look, I submitted for 4 hours, but I think I'm going to be under 3 hours. You got to change my corral where I start. And she's like, sir, there's nothing I can do. I'm like, oh, no. You don't understand. I'm going to go under 3 hours. You have to put me in another spot. She's like, there's nothing I can do. I'm like, somebody in Jacob Javits, there's probably 20,000 people there. Someone can help me. Sends me to a room. I go in. There's this tall, lanky guy in there, and he's dealing with like the elite runners. I walk in. I start telling him I got my proof of whatever. Start telling him. He doesn't care. He's like, just give me your number. He stamps it. He's like, this will give you access to the club running area. I show up on race day, and I am a few feet behind the pros, literally behind the pros. First marathon, I go out like a rocket. I'm gonna 3 hours easy. First mile, I'm crushing it. 10K, I'm crushing it. Halfway through the marathon, I'm like, that old lady is coming to get me, isn't she? I get to mile 20 and I can't even feel my legs anymore. And I know that lady is laughing at this. Anyway, get to the point. I get into mile 24. I'm in Central Park. This is my first marathon and I go down flat on my face. I can't, my muscle seize. My calf muscle is shifted to the side of my leg. I'm lying on the floor. I'm crying. I'm not going to finish this race. Somebody comes up behind me, taps me. Are you okay? I'm like, I'm not. I can't stand up. He's like, no, you're just cramped. No idea who this person is. Comes around the front of me, puts his arms under my armpits. By the way, I'm disgusting. We're 24 miles in. Lifts me up. I still don't know what he looks like. I've never seen this guy. He's like, we're going to finish this. We ran the last 2 miles together as he encouraged me across the line. And to me, it was one of the greatest random acts of kindness anyone's ever done. No idea who he is. Never saw him before. Never saw him again. Never saw him that day. And it's just sort of examples like that. Little things make a big difference. Random acts of kindness. The last little thing make a big difference. Celebrate. We don't celebrate everything. Celebrate small things. Celebrate everything. That whole sort of concept, people are critical of, everyone gets a trophy. Fantastic! Everyone gets a trophy. That's fine. Celebrate small wins. Yes, we need to recognize bigger successes. I hear you. But small wins, celebrate. That's the little things make a big difference.
Yeah, the people who complain about everyone getting trophies, I understand what their perspective is, but the question I have for them is, are you encouraging people to celebrate even if they don't get to the trophies? Because if you're not encouraging people to celebrate regardless of whether they got the trophies, what's the point?
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Look, I think we don't celebrate enough. I don't think we recognize small wins. So was it last? Yeah, no, about 13 months ago. So not this past December, but the December before. It's about 2 weeks before the Christmas holidays, and I go out with my family to dinner, and before we leave the house, I grab my iPad and I put it under my jacket. It's amazing to me. I have 2 daughters and a wife, and none of them realize I'm carrying like this, an iPad under my arm, under my jacket. We go to the restaurant, a lovely restaurant, and we're just going out for dinner. It's a couple weeks before the holidays, and there's nothing in particular. It's a nice restaurant. We sit down, and waiter takes the orders, and I reach under my jacket. Again, it's a sports jacket, so I reach under and I take out my iPad and I put it on the table. And teenage daughters, their eyes like roll like, oh my God, Dad, what are you doing?
We're going to be embarrassed again. Oh no.
Exactly. Here comes the embarrassment. And what I did is I had created over the couple of days before a short presentation. I think it was PowerPoint. It doesn't really matter. And it had 6 pages in it. There was 1 page for each of the 4 of us, 1 page for the 4 of us together, and 1 page for my wife and I. And each one had a list of all of our accomplishments for the year. It wasn't a brag list. I mean, it was getting promoted in school. You made it from one grade to the next. Woohoo! This is great. And some people sort of look down like, oh, come on, you made it from one grade to the other. You're really celebrating? Yes, because these are wins. We spend so much time focusing on you got a bad grade or you didn't find success here. Let's enumerate. And each person had, I don't know, 10, 12, 14 things on their page and even things like learned a new skill or a new hobby, took on a new volunteer. My wife took on some new volunteering roles that year, and I recognized that. Let's celebrate more. This is part of the keys to happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah, I agree.
And celebration, once again, that's what feeds the dopamine, the serotonin into the nervous system.
You got it.
I mean, it just does. It doesn't even matter whether it's deserved. It's irrelevant whether it's deserved. Just the celebration itself feeds it into the nervous system.
That's it. That's my mission. Making the world happier one smile at a time. Let's keep making this a better world. And
the funny thing is that when you feed those hormones into your nervous system, you get more success.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And this is probably a part of that success equation, but you're waking up your brain when you're like, woohoo, and like doing something out of the ordinary. Your brain is like, wait a minute, I need to pay attention. And your brain is always looking for the things that you believe to be true. So if you're celebrating and you're waking your brain up at that moment saying, this is important, your brain is going to open up to new opportunities because it's constantly searching for those things that you're celebrating.
Well said.
So, of course, success follows.
Agreed.
More happiness follows.
That's one other thing I've got to ask you about, Scott, because this is part of my personal formula about what I think it takes for people to be successful in their lives, especially if they're feeling that they haven't been able to be successful. To me, there are 2 main components. And this may or may not tie into the happiness theme. I mean, you give us your take on it. But the two components are self-confidence or self-esteem and our social connectedness. How connected are we to our fellow human beings? I'm curious, how does that fit in, if at all, to what you talk about?
So, it's almost like I sent you guys a script ahead of time. It's beautiful. I mean, it's truly beautiful because, so one of the other chapters is called No One Can Make It Alone. And it is very much tied to the power of social networks, the power of belonging, the power of interacting with others. And I talk a lot about in the book, the Harvard study on what makes a good life. I don't know if you're familiar with it. There's a book out, I think yesterday as well, that is the most recent iteration of it. For your listeners, the study started in the 1940s with a cohort of 256 Harvard sophomores. And then a few years later, 450 Boston area inner city youth were added to the study. So over 700 people were studied over the course of their lives. And it's still going on today. This is the longest running study on what makes a good life. It's 80 years now old. And they followed people on, they interviewed them, in terms of their physical health, their mental health, their, family health, so many different metrics and wide range of people in the study. By the way, there's a former U.S. president that was in the study. There are some people that ran for Senate. There are, award-winning journalists and musicians. There are also people that committed suicide. There are people that have dealt with depression and addictions. Anyway, what's the punchline? What's the takeaway? The takeaway from it is what makes a good life. The greatest indicator of what makes a good life is social interaction, the strength of social relationships. And the one, there's so many stats and so many things to remember. The one thing that I love to tell everybody, especially as I personally am approaching the half-century mark, is they correlated. One of the conclusions of the study is those who said they had the best strongest social relationships at age 50 were the happiest, physically and mentally healthiest at age 80. Think about that. 30-year gap. So if at 50 I felt like socially I have great relationships, people I can trust, people I can rely on, a great social network, at 80, greater happiness, greater physical health, greater mental health. That's pretty compelling. And it gets right to your point, Walt, about the power of social connections and how important that is.
It reminds me of another Harvard study. Well, actually, it wasn't Harvard. It was a study conducted by two schools. I can't remember which schools they were, but they had found a collection of journals that had been kept by novitiates studying to be nuns in the late 1920s, early 1930s.
Okay.
And the journals were basically written in response to an order from the head of the order saying, essentially, write about who you are and where it is that you're hoping to go as you study to become a nun. And they realized this was kind of a gold mine. So they took those studies some 60 years later, and evaluated what they had written compared to what happened to them in their lives, because they were able to track down most of the people who had done that. And what they found, somewhat to their amazement, very much in congruence with what you were just talking about, is that the ones who wrote most positively, most happily in their journals were the ones who had the longest lives, the most success, the best social connections. They had all of the stuff. And it was basically laid out some 60 years before in a journal that they had written when they were in their 20s.
That's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
The power of positivity, the power of attitude makes a big difference.
Absolutely incredible stuff. There's so many good studies that have been done. I wish we could talk about more, but we're running out of time here. Hey, before we go, two things we got to get. First, somebody wants to find out more about what Scott White's about. How do they find out about you?
So, just like my name says, Life is Too Short Guy, you can check out the URL, lifeistooshortguy.com. Literally, lifeistooshortguy.com. You can find my email and all my social media there. Or just check out the book. I'd love for more and more people to check out the book. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever you buy books. It's called The Life is Too Short Guy, Strategies to Make Every Day the Best Day Ever.
All right, good. Okay. So people are going out and buying that right away. Then the second thing I want to do is to tell you something that I tell to all of our givers who come onto the show here, because you're definitely a giver. And one thing that givers have in common is that they're constantly, writing books, doing podcasts, writing articles, various ways communicating with the public at large. And there are so many people who have read or heard or seen something that they did who they'll never meet them. They'll never see them. They don't know what happened with them, but those people took something away. They got something out of that, something of value. They put something into practice in their own lives. They got an uplift for the day, something like that. And you'll never know about it. And I think it's important to recognize that. So on behalf of those people you'll never meet and you'll never see, thank you for what you've been doing. Thank you for what you're continuing to do. Thank you for the book that you wrote.
Oh, that's wonderful. I appreciate that. And I will tell you, I have heard from a lot of people as I've gone on this journey, and nothing makes me happier. I would love for people to email me, to hit me on social media about some change they've made. It is so inspiring, motivating, and you want to talk about making me happy. I would love to positively impact so many people around me. Again, my mission is to make the world happier one smile at a time, and I would love to hear from your listeners that I've impacted.
Yeah, Jody, we know what that's like, right? That feels great when you get that.
Oh, yeah. That's the best.
Absolutely the best. What's your final wrap up here for the big takeaway message? Because we said at the beginning, okay, what's this new perspective that Scott's going to bring to us? So what's your takeaway on that?
I think the biggest thing that landed for me today, Scott, was the barrel with the gold coins, because it's that visual of how precious each of those coins are. And, as I imagine myself looking into my own barrel, it's almost like you can't see all of the coins. It's like black, and you just take out a handful and hope that there's more still left. And it just really goes towards how precious every moment is. And I love that you're doing this work, and that, you're starting on the foot of it's not your circumstances, regardless of your circumstances or what you have. Today is your opportunity to shift that perspective, shift your mindset, and choose and be happy and have the best day ever. And I think that ripple effect will really change the world.
Wonderful. That's awesome. That was beautiful. Thank you. You made my day.
Good.
Yeah. Well, you made our day. You gave us our daily dose of happy. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate that so much. And thank you, Jody Lynn. Thank you, podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.